I do think that there's something cult-like about Meghan Markle. Harry's a fool for having got taken in, and I do think he's been tricked, he's been hoodwinked. I don't know whether he realizes that yet, but there will come a moment when he wakes up one morning and realizes what he has sacrificed for this woman. The real headache for him is that he's trapped. He's all in, okay? It's like he's in the casino and he put all his chips on one Meghan Markle. And that's why he's now hostage to fortune. You could admire her in a sort of Cruella de Vil sense, that she is ruthless. That article had that bombshell line about her team scouting publishers for what the book deal would be if the couple divorced. I mean, that is cynical in the extreme. Well, welcome to Meghan Markle.
Hi, y'all. Kinsey Schofield here, and I am with Mark Dolan of The Mark Dolan Show on YouTube. Just search at Mark Dolan Show, and he will pop right up. He's taking over YouTube. Mark, you are one of my longest friends when it comes to British media, and I admire you so much. But you know what? It occurred to me today when I was getting prepared to talk to you, I don't know where you started on the Harry and Meghan scale. Can you take me back in time? Think about the wedding and talk to me about your evolution when it comes to Harry and Meghan.
Of course. Well, my memories of Harry in particular go back to the tragic scenario of his mother's death in a Paris tunnel at high speed at the hands of an incompetent and probably drunk bodyguard on the payroll of Mohammed Al Fayed. So I was actually doing my first job in radio at that time. I was a very junior producer at a radio station called 963 Liberty, which coincidentally was owned by Mohammed Al Fayed. I'd met Al Fayed, I'd met his son Dodi, who was of course also tragically killed. So actually that was my connection with sort of Harry and the family professionally. And no one will forget the awful footage of Harry following his mother's hearse on Pall Mall, something he should never have been asked to do. Was he about 9 years of age when that happened?
I think he was
Something like that.
he was a few years older because he's just Prince William was 15, I believe. So I
Oh,
believe
so he's probably about 12.
yeah, 12 or 13, yeah.
Yeah. Terrible stuff. So I just remember the tragic backdrop to this young man's life, which is actually why sometimes when I'm harsh about Harry, I do try to remind myself that he's had a difficult life and he's experienced a lot of pain. And there's very few things worse than losing your mother, especially at such a young age. So that was, the first abiding memory of Harry. Then this guy becoming a teenager, a bit of a party animal, very sporty, very brave, served in the military, one of the boys. And it got to the point where just before Meghan arrived on the scene, Harry was probably the most popular royal, second only to the Queen. In some polling, I think he was actually more popular than the great Queen Elizabeth II. Why? Because he was a real guy. Yes, he was an aristocrat. Yes, he was Prince Charles's son. His grandmother was the Queen. But he enjoyed himself. He was authentic. And then along came Meghan.
Well, I want to ask you about this because you, Mrs. Dolan, is a great testimonial here that if you find the right person, they uplift you. They make you a better person. There's this meme that goes around the internet that has like a picture of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and it's like, caution, find the right woman. Do you think that that's appropriate?
I think it's highly appropriate. I think that Meghan Markle is the worst thing that happened to Prince Harry, second only to losing his mother in a car crash. I think the other metaphorical car crash was his decision to date this two-bit Hollywood actress that wasn't even the best thing in Suits, and to sacrifice his family, to completely fall out with his brother, his sister-in-law, his father, to give up his country because he loves Britain. And let me tell you, he misses Britain.
Yes. Well, we're seeing that in this Vanity Fair article.
Yeah, yeah.
Inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's big business ambitions 5 years after their royal exit. And, you can vouch for this in a way. They're saying over here in the States that the reason this piece is so damaging is because it's from an American in New
Yeah,
York City that doesn't have an agenda, and it
correct.
crushes Harry and Meghan's claims that it's a smear campaign brought on by the
Hmm.
British tabloids that have an agenda. Do you think that's true?
Definitely. And I think that Harry has left one gilded cage, which was Buckingham Palace, and he's entered another, which is Montecito, California, in the mansion that has about 16 bathrooms. And so he's gone from being, a prisoner of the monarchy to a prisoner of Meghan Markle. It's quite clear to me. I mean, I don't see it so much as a marriage as a hostage situation. I really, really
I thought
do.
you were going to say a business situation, which I think both are probably true. Both are
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, look, the writing of the book Spare, the podcast, the Netflix series, all of that was financial because obviously once Megxit happened and Harry and Meghan have left the UK, they do need an income. Yes, Harry's inherited money from his mother and from his great grandmother, the Queen Mother, but they need to make money. Their costs are significant. And so that's what's happened with Harry is he's done a deal with the devil. He's sold his family and his country down the river in order to pay the bills. And that's what I was saying earlier about, the worst thing that's happened to him is meeting Meghan because he's lost everything. I mean, probably the most important relationship in his life was that with his brother because they were effectively sort of half orphaned in was it 97 the crash.
Yes.
Yeah. So, at that point, I mean, yes, he's close to his father, but that would surely bond Harry with his own brother. They would be like twins at that point, united in grief. And yet to see them estranged is such a tragedy. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's been a disaster. And I don't wish, by the way, for this to be a character assassination on Meghan Markle, because I say good luck to her. She is a smart cookie and she knows what she's doing. She came to London. She was an unknown here in the UK. She used people like Piers Morgan and our mutual friend Lizzie Cundy to climb the social and showbiz ladder. And she landed a prince.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. So, good luck to her. But more fool Harry for being taken in and for going on to sacrifice so much to keep this woman happy.
Yeah, I think it's some for a lot of my audience, it's deeper than that. Harry sacrificed a lot and we're disappointed in him for that.
Mm.
But there's a little bit of anger because they feel like Harry and Meghan made the last few years of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth's
Oh,
lives a living hell. Do you agree? Or have you felt that way in the past?
yes. I mean, I think that might be one of his greatest sins is the impact his behavior had on the late Queen Elizabeth II, because she was already in poor health, in declining health, when news of the tell all book was announced. So she had to have sleepless nights reflecting on what was going to be in this book and what impact it would have on her family and on an institution in the monarchy to which she had devoted her life. So I think the issue for Elizabeth would have been for the late great Queen Elizabeth II would have been the not knowing,
Mm.
and the concerns, because I mean she did everything to protect the family and to protect the monarchy. A very very hard life, such a hardworking and committed person, a public servant, and an amazing matriarch as well. So for her grandson to repay her all of that, all the love, all the affection, with the threat of a tell-all book. I mean, just the idea of a royal publishing a book is controversial in its own right. Even a sort of magazine sort of style coffee table book
Yeah.
would need clearance with the palace normally. So yeah, I think so. And by the way, I mean, I've spoken to a few royal insiders who say that Harry has got blood on his hands and that his behavior impacted the health of Philip and Elizabeth and possibly and potentially hastened their parting. Now, you can't
Well,
say that, can you?
Mark, and King Charles, who has cancer now. I mean,
Yeah.
you can look at scientific studies that say stress causes cancer. I mean, I'm not,
Mm.
I'm probably jumping. That is probably an extreme, but there is no way that I mean, sleepless nights is the perfect way to explain it. That King Charles wasn't devastated over Omid Scobie's claim that he, along with the Princess of Wales, were the royal racists. There has
Yeah.
been so much hurt over the last few years. I mean, there's a little bit of criticism that I took issue with in the Vanity Fair piece about Catherine's early years project, and they kind of kick her and say she's been doing this for 11 years. What has she accomplished? And my
Mm.
first defense was over the last 5 years, she spent a year of it with cancer. She lost two very important people to her in the form of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth. The last, since Megxit, there has been, hurt and devastation and loss, and the family
Hmm.
has not had time to take a breath and recover. So I don't want to be extreme. I don't want to jump and say Prince Harry is the reason because, but
Yeah.
hurt and betrayal and stress, they make you physically ill. They do.
Definitely. Harry's behavior, unnecessary behavior, impacted the mental well-being of the Queen, the late Queen, Philip, and King Charles, as you said. It's been a nightmare for Catherine as well, who's definitely felt some heat from the Sussexes over the years, some PR sniping and some horrible stuff in Spare, which essentially throws shade on his sister-in-law, implying that she's not a very nice person, which you and I know to be palpably untrue. I'm really torn in terms of the blame game because, I mean, we should be clear, shouldn't we, that there's no evidence whatsoever that Harry somehow caused Queen Elizabeth to pass away
Right.
prematurely. We know it didn't help. We know
Yeah.
it didn't help. And I'm torn because, on the one hand, I'm thinking, well, Harry's just a damaged person. And you know that saying, hurt people hurt people. And perhaps, Harry having suffered in his life and being quite bitter about things that have happened to him in the past, perhaps he's entitled to press the nuclear button, to get his side of the story out there, and to actually punish people who he feels are responsible for the person he is today. So, maybe he's entitled to that revenge. So that's the one side of it.
As the spokesperson for a mental health app, Better Up, here in
Mm,
the United States, you would hope that that would not be his answer. You would hope he would just be like, I'm going to talk my way through this. You mentioned, yes, thank you for being so gracious with your time. I promise I won't keep you very much longer. But you mentioned the the issue with Prince Harry and Prince William and their relationship. And in this Vanity Fair article, they go into additional bully allegations, talking about
yes.
how Meghan Markle was described as acting like a mean girl's teenager and becoming cold and throwing staff to the wolves when something went poorly, often due to her own demands. Harry
Mm.
talks about in Spare this physical argument that goes down between him and Prince William because Prince William says to him, I don't like the way your wife is treating our staff. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Every time one of these news stories pops up, does it give credibility to Prince William's argument that Meghan behaved poorly while she was a member of the Fab Four working within Kensington Palace?
Well, I think so. A leopard doesn't change its spots. And the sheer volume of allegations against the Sussexes and in particular Meghan with regard to how staff are treated is just too voluminous now to ignore. And you only have to look at staff turnover, don't you? How many assistants and PR gurus and managers that Meghan has been through to tell you there's a problem with her temperament, there's a problem with her attitude. I think she's a narcissistic personality. I think that Harry said it a few years ago before the wedding. What Meghan wants, Meghan gets. And just a few minutes ago, I was saying to you that half of me thinks, well, Harry's entitled to a right of reply. He's entitled to revenge if he's bitter about the family. But that suggests that somehow Harry's behavior is proactive
Yeah.
and that it comes from him. There is the other theory, and I think it's more compelling, and it's the idea that Harry is under the spell of Meghan
Mm.
and that he's in the cult and he's got Stockholm syndrome. You know about Stockholm syndrome is when you start loving your captor. And I think that's happened to Harry because the Vanity Fair article, which I've got to say is the most explosive piece of royal journalism I've seen in a long time. It's a cracking read and longer than War and Peace, but more entertaining. And it's so interesting when they talked about how in love they are with each other, and it's almost like get a room, guys.
Yeah.
But I mean that turns my stomach because I just think this is a guy in Harry that's like I said, he's under her spell, and I think she's got into his head. Harry's a damaged person, and manipulative people like Meghan will always look for a damaged soul that they can occupy as the host cell. Because look, what's Meghan all about? She's about control, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fame, money, control, power, and it's all about her. And I think if you see how things are panning out, it's come to pass. I mean, she's an unstoppable force. $1 million question I've got for you, Kinsey, as the royal expert, is does she even need Harry anymore?
Does she need Harry anymore? I don't think she does need Harry anymore. And I think that's why you're seeing
Wow.
them deviate from the plan. Now they're going on solo engagements. And I don't know if you saw Prince Harry went to visit with firefighters
Yeah.
here alone, and that surprised me. And instinctually, I felt guilty because I was less hostile about that than I was about Harry and Meghan showing up together to the Pasadena fires. But at the same time, when they showed up together, according to people that were there, they cleared out hundreds of volunteers so that Harry and Meghan could have their own little solo moment and private tour with the Pasadena mayor. And that's disruptive to healing. That's disruptive to peace and recovery. I mean, legitimate recovery. Harry stopping by a fire station and saying hi to some dogs is less disruptive. I certainly wasn't as annoyed by that as I was about their visit to Pasadena. When it comes to the bullying allegations, I don't know if you remember the Hollywood Reporter article that kind of rocked them, but it was this big. You talk about War and
Mm.
Peace, how big this Vanity and it, just really forensically researched this Vanity Fair article is. There was a Hollywood Reporter mention that was super small. It was just like a paragraph long, but it infuriated the Sussexes so much that within a week or two, they gave an exclusive to Us Weekly magazine, which is like a grocery store tabloid here in the States, where Meghan had some of her current employees praised her, saying, "Oh, she gives me her old baby clothes. She never lets me leave her house without fresh eggs and lemons." I mean, it was one woman said that Harry and Meghan watered her. She felt like a seed, and Harry and Meghan watered her. I mean, it was very bizarre, like hippie
Yeah.
Meghan Markle kind of trash, whatever. That did not work. That Us Weekly thing, for Vanity Fair to come out and do this, that was not a solution. So I was
Yeah.
trying to think, what is the solution? How does Meghan change this narrative that she's a bully? And it occurred to me, and tell me if I'm being too cynical, it occurred to me that she uses the anti bullying digital platform to try to divert attention off the fact that
Yeah.
she is potentially the bully. So she goes on TV talking about how they're fighting bullying online. And the reality is, I think she's just trying to distract from the fact that she is known as a heinous bully.
Was it saying the quiet bit out loud? It's
Yeah.
projection. It's
Yeah.
that idea that they are the thing of which they accuse you. It's exactly the same reason why people on social media who call themselves Be Kind are the most vicious of all of the online trolls. So I think that's right. I think it's a very, very clever distraction, and I think it's working. She's a very manipulative and clever person, and as I've said earlier, I can't condone that, but she's good at it. And Harry's a fool for having got taken in. And I do think he's been tricked, he's been hoodwinked. I don't know whether he realizes that yet, but there will come a moment when he wakes up one morning and realizes what he has sacrificed for this woman, and the spell will be broken. By which time, I fear for this young man, it will be too late.
Is he that oblivious, or is he comfortable because One person that knows the couple said
Mm,
they believed that Harry would be happy for Meghan to make all the money and he concentrate on charity work. He's found somebody that's willing to hustle, that wants to put herself out there, that
yeah.
is obsessed with generating an income, even if she's running over your family to do so. Is he that oblivious? Or is he just comfortable being the stay-at-home dad that plays polo, surfs, and occasionally shows up to shake hands and kiss babies?
Well, that's the problem. You know Harry so well. You've been observing him for years, and he is a shadow of his former self. And he does look like someone that's just being kept in a box, that he's behaving himself. His body language when they're out together is very subservient to her, and he looks like the junior partner. The article was interesting as well about her sort of her portraying herself as a victim, that this idea from the article in Vanity Fair that Harry feels very protective of Meghan. But why does he feel protective of this multi-millionaire, world famous actress that's married to a prince that lives in a gigantic mansion? What exactly is there to protect? And I think it's because she's doing a very good job of portraying herself to the world and to her husband as a victim, poor me. And anyone that's ever been in a slightly abusive relationship, Kinsey, will tell you that playing the victim card is another power flex.
What you're referencing is this line, he's so protective of her because people are so nasty to her. That stood out to me as, people don't like you.
Mm,
Why aren't you deviating from the plan more? Like, why aren't you it just feels like it's the same old, same old. I just feel like there's a lack of creativity when it comes to the branding of this couple. And I guess that would be
yeah.
my next question for you, because I think the theme of the article at the end of the day is 5 years. You've accomplished very little. You have
Mm,
very little discipline. You are unable to collaborate with people, and you have more losses than wins at the end,
yeah.
as we hit the 5 year mark. What have you felt about the Sussexes professionally after
Yeah.
Megxit?
Well, that's a great, great question. Essentially, the only profitable part of their business model has been the royal stuff, has been Harry's connection to the royal family as William's brother. And so it's really the book and the Netflix series which have been the money spinners. To be fair to Harry, Spare has been an international bestseller, so it was very well marketed.
Someone else wrote it,
Many
though. Someone else wrote it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that probably helps. That's why it's readable. But so the book was a hit and the Netflix series was a hit. Why? Well, because that was their meal ticket. Harry's royal connections, his story. Above and beyond that, there's not much there. The rest is very much slim pickings. What have you got? I mean, do you remember the raft of ideas that were pitched to Spotify and Netflix, which an insider, I think, at Spotify said was so embarrassing. They were like, they couldn't barely stop laughing at some of his suggestions for TV show ideas because they're not really unkind about Harry. I think he's a good guy, but he's not brain of Britain, is he? He's no great intellect, I would say. I mean, the other big problem for
Wait,
Harry,
I want to I want to challenge you right now. If you
go on
were
then.
Prince Harry, what would you pitch to Spotify or Netflix that involved you?
Mm,
Like because you and I both know that when Netflix offered them a deal, what they wanted was Harry and Meghan. They wanted
yeah.
Kardashian style. So understanding, which Harry and Meghan clearly didn't, but understanding those were the expectations. If you were Prince Harry, because you are incredibly creative, off the top of your
Yeah.
head, can you think of anything that you would have pitched them? Because I would have done like sit downs with veterans that had incredible stories and to
Yeah.
promote Invictus games throughout the year.
Well, I think that's a great idea because that's connected to his brand and that's what he cares about. And the Invictus Games is one of the positives for Harry in his life. I think that he's a world famous man. He's a figure of, he's got a global footprint. He's the king's son. So I probably would encourage him to do a documentary series in which he travels the world meeting people from all walks of life, because I think it'd be fascinating for someone that rich and that famous and that privileged to meet ordinary people. So I think a Louis Theroux style world tour, going to different countries, learning about cultures. I think that would be great because he's quite watchable. He's a decent looking guy. People tend to warm to Harry as well. When people meet Harry, they do like him. I don't think he's going to be the next David Letterman or Jimmy Kimmel. He's not really a broadcaster as such. But that's what I do. But in the end, if I had to be creative and come up with ideas for Harry, I would struggle because his great asset was his life story. He sold that, and there really isn't much beyond. And the other issue, what's really scary for Harry now, is that in a sense, there's no way out because the British people have completely fallen out of love with him. I mean, many say he's not welcome back in this country. And Meghan would certainly get booed if she returned. William is absolutely incandescent with rage towards his brother, and they're certainly not on speaking terms. And I think the hatred is palpable. But then there's William Harry and his own father, which is frosty at best now because of what Harry's put the family through. So the family's gone, the country's gone. His public role can't come back because he's not a royal anymore. So what exactly would he return to if he came back to Britain? So the real headache for him is that he's trapped. He's all in. Okay. It's like he's in the casino and he put all his chips on one Meghan Markle. And that's why he's now hostage to fortune.
One last question. Thank you so much again for talking to me. I want your reaction to this quote from a former employee, I should say a member of the Sussex Survivors Club. They spoke to the Daily Beast and they reacted to this Vanity Fair piece. And they said, I feel desperately sorry for the people affected because I have been there, but I also feel vindicated. They argue all those people, this is regarding the Us Weekly magazine, all those people saying she was the greatest boss should be ashamed of themselves. It's obviously very tempting to work for her when you are being wooed and love bombed, but people should be in no doubt she is a nightmare. They said, I would think the atmosphere will be particularly hellish now everything is going to She doesn't do disappointment well. How iconic, I don't know what other word to use, is that statement from a member of the Sussex Survivors Club in response to the Vanity Fair piece?
It's devastating. Well, I do think that there's something cult-like about Meghan Markle. And I think that poor Harry is basically it's just a one person. The congregation is it's just him, and she controls everything. And you know, when you have these cults, it starts to go horribly wrong. And they sort of burn the place down. And I think we're reaching that point now where the building's on fire and Harry's sat there and can't move. And it's impossible to defend Meghan Markle against these allegations of bullying and of narcissistic behavior. But the lesson is a brutal one for Harry and for anyone watching or listening, which is there will always be manipulative narcissists like Meghan Markle. The trick is to not be taken in by them.
That is a fortune cookie that I am willing to frame. Did you have any other thoughts about the Vanity Fair piece before I let you go?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Mean Girls teenager idea was hilarious. There's this idea that Meghan is sort of cruel and bitchy, like a high school teenager that's just getting ready for the prom, and she's got her tiara and she's got her dress. And my goodness, the will of this woman, you could admire her in a sort of Cruella de Vil sense, that she is ruthless and that she's achieved so much. And you know what you do? You write this woman off at your peril because, yes, she's a controversial and divisive figure, but she's become one of the most famous women in the world, probably top 5 most famous women in the world. Now, she's rich. She's married to a prince, which is pretty impressive. And so she's going to prevail, and well, that article had that bombshell line about her team scouting publishers for what the book deal would be if the couple divorced. I mean, that is cynical in the extreme. Well, welcome to Meghan Markle.
Amen. All right. If you enjoy Mark Dolan as much as I do, you can check him out on the Mark Dolan Show on YouTube. Just search at Mark Dolan Show and you will be sent straight to his page. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like his videos. He greatly appreciates it, and share those videos with a friend. Mark, I love you. I'm so grateful that you are a friend of mine, and I have a blast talking to you. I hope you'll come back and visit me again soon.
I'd love to, anytime. Straight back at you, Kinsey.
If you agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks, everyone. Bye.